Today, we throw lamps at people who need to lighten up. Lights are cool. Let's just get that out there straight away. A model with working lights is almost instantly much better than one without. However, this again can be a daunting task, but with a bit of practice it can be achieved fairly simply and without too much cost. For this video, we'll be looking at how to install lighting for both DCC ready and hard-wired DCC models. I contemplated trying to fit these LEDs into a more authentic lamp-shaped body, but that was verging on insanity, so I decided against it. However, there are some quite expensive LEDs already in lamps available. However, they were a bit too pricey for my liking, so I decided to take a miss on authenticity this time. I know, shocker, right? So before we start, you better hit those like and subscribe buttons. I mean, go on. Right, so to start with, DCC ready models. The actual light part that I will be using are small LEDs off of eBay, the link to which is in the description. And these are connected to a 10 kilo-ohm resistor. For where the lamps go, I use this diagram, which I lifted straight off Google, and can be found fairly easily with a little searching. So, as this is a king, this will be used mostly for express duties, which has a head code of 2 lamps, one on the bottom left and one on the bottom right. So to start with, using a 0.8mm drill bit, drill 2 holes into the running board for each LED, either side of the lamp irons. Before fitting the LEDs, using a fine flat edge, I carefully use a knife blade, bend the legs of the LED over into a right angle as close to the LED as possible. Do this for both and make sure you do both the same way. So for instance, that the positive leg is on right for both. It doesn't matter which is on the right leg as long as both of the LEDs are the same. Then, both of the LEDs can be threaded into position and superglued in place. Then, looking under the body of the loco, a hole was drilled in each frame under the smoke box, so that one negative leg and one positive leg can be threaded through into the centre. Once these legs are there, solder them together, being careful not to damage the body at all with the heat. Then, using 2 short sections of wire, about 4 inches long, solder them onto the 2 remaining legs of the LEDs. Then simply bend the legs of the LEDs to best fit onto the running board, to be the least noticeable. And now, we turn to the internal part of the model. Solder your resistor onto the positive common on the socket board. You probably need to remove the board to get good access to the exposed PCB. This hole is pin number 7. Pin number 1 will be marked, usually with asterisks on the board or something similar, and then count round in an anti-clockwise fashion until you get to 7, and that's where to solder into. You also may need to remove the DCC decoder to get best access. Once that is soldered in, you can solder on your wires. The wire from the positive legs of the LED solder onto the resistor. Make sure that you thread some heat shrink onto the wire before you solder it. Once soldered, you can then shrink your heat shrink down. Then solder the negative wire into pin 6 of the DCC socket. If you have removed the DCC coder, now is the time to refit it. And that's the lighting installed. A quick test will reveal if everything has worked correctly. They should only come on when the locomotive is set to go forwards. And now comes the harder part, fitting the body back onto the chassis. I found that with most models there's a slight indent towards the front of the body underneath the smoke box, which just about fits some wire through, so aim to get the wires through there. It can be a bit of a headache making sure all the wires stay in the right position, but you'll eventually get there. Once you've got the body back on, using a little bit of super glue, glue the wires and exposed legs of the LED under the running board in place, making sure they're kept nice and close to the running board. Once that glue is dried, paint everything that you've installed under the running board black to make it a little bit more subtle, as the shininess and the purple insulation is a little off-putting. Also, Paint all of the LED black except the front lens, making sure you cover all around the back to minimise any light leakage. And once that's dried, you can paint the LED to the colour you desire. As this is a GWR loco in the 30s, these will be painted maroon, just to try and disguise the fact these are overscale LEDs instead of actual oil lamps. If the lights are too bright for your liking, which for me they're borderline, there are two options at this point. You can get some slightly more resistive resistors. 10k was the biggest that I currently had on hand. Or, as with the Lay's DCC decoders, you can probably do this with other decoders as well, you can change the brightness of the LED. But you'll need to have a controller that can edit the CVs of the decoder. But that's just an option to bear in mind. Now, a short break to see where this episode's Steam spend is going. As this week isn't about any specific railway element, the Steam spend will be donated to the Railway Children charity. They look after homeless children and young adults and help them get off the streets and back onto their feet. Now we move on to the non-DCC ready model. The lamp part is very similar, although with the location of this lamp I did have to take the smoke box door off, which was a little bit of a challenge, but it definitely helped, as without it, it wouldn't have been possible. The only major difference really is that instead of soldering the wires and resistors onto the PCB that the decoder plugs into, we're just soldering straight onto the wires coming out the decoder. The negative leg from the LEDs connects to the white wire from the decoder, and the positive leg with the resistor attached to it connects to the blue wire again with sufficient heat shrink on it to avoid any chances of any short circuits within the body. And there we have it, folks. DCC lighting installed on both a DCC ready and a hardwired DCC model. Now I know I've only done this on GWR steam locomotives, but this technique can easily be adapted for other regions of steam locomotives, and Lord have mercy, maybe even diesel and electric locomotives too. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe buttons.